The room was spinning, just a little bit, not enough to make him fall over, but enough to make Alex grab the edge of a sleek, white marble table to steady himself. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with air that smelled like expensive perfume, polished leather, and a faint, sweet scent of strawberries. It was a smell that usually meant money, and tonight, that smell was suffocating him. Alex looked down at his shoes. They were Italian leather, shiny enough to see his own reflection in them. His father had bought them for him yesterday, just for this night. "Look sharp, Alex," his father had said, his voice loud and echoing in the quiet of the office. "This isn't a playground. This is the future we are building." Alex hated those shoes. They pinched his toes, but he couldn't loosen the laces. He had to look perfect. He had to be perfect. Because tonight wasn't just a party. It was the most important night of his life. Even if it didn't feel like his life at all. It felt like a stage play where he had forgotten his lines, but everyone was watching anyway. He was only 24, but right now, holding a glass of golden champagne that cost more than most people's cars, he felt about 10 years old. The weight of the evening was pressing down on his shoulders like a heavy backpack filled with rocks. Around him, the city's elite laughed and clinked glasses. They were wearing diamonds and tuxedos, smiling with teeth that looked too white to be real. Alex tried to smile back at a passing woman, but his face felt stiff, like it was made of plaster. He took a sip of his drink. The bubbles popped against his tongue, sharp and bitter. He didn't really like champagne, but he needed something to hold. He needed something to do with his hands, so they wouldn't shake. This was the launch party for the merger between his family's company, Apex Tech, and a giant movie studio. It was a massive deal. $750 million. That was the number his father, Robert, had drilled into his head all week. $750 million. It was such a big number that Alex couldn't even really picture it. It was just a scary, dark cloud of money that hung over the dinner table every night. If this went well, the family name would be everywhere. Movies, TV shows, streaming platforms. Apex Tech would be a king in the entertainment world. But if it went wrong, Alex didn't even want to think about that. His father's face would turn that specific shade of red, the one that meant silence for days. The disappointment would be louder than any shouting. But there was a catch. The deal wasn't signed yet. There was one last person who needed to say yes. One person who held the power to make the $750 million appear or vanish into thin air. That person was Keanu Reeves. Alex scanned the room, his eyes darting from face to face. He saw investors, actors, and producers, but he didn't see the man he needed. His heart was beating faster now, a thumping rhythm against his ribs that made it hard to hear the music. He felt a drop of sweat roll down his back. The air conditioning in the penthouse was cranked up high, but he felt boiling hot. Find him. Robert had told him just an hour ago, gripping Alex's arm with a hand that felt like iron. Network, Alex. Make him see the vision. You're the face of the new generation. You need to seal this. Alex had nodded, terrified. He wasn't a businessman. He wasn't a visionary. He was just a guy who happened to be born into the right family. He didn't know how to seal a deal with a movie legend. He felt like a fraud. He pushed himself off the table and started to walk. The floor was made of glass, looking down at the city lights far below. It made him dizzy, but he kept moving. He passed a group of men laughing loudly about stocks. He passed a woman showing off her new ring. Everyone seemed so confident. Everyone seemed to belong here, except for him. He checked his reflection in a chrome pillar near the wall. His hair was gelled back perfectly. His suit was tailored to fit his frame, exactly. He looked the part. On the outside, he was a rich, successful young heir. On the inside, he was a mess of anxiety and doubt. He wondered if anyone else could see it. He wondered if Keanu Reeves would take one look at him and know he was just a kid playing dress-up. "Okay," Alex whispered to himself. "Just breathe. Just say hello. Be charming." He adjusted his cufflinks, twisting the silver metal around his wrist. He needed to find Keanu. He needed to get this over with. The sooner he found him, the sooner he could go home and take off these pinching shoes and stop pretending to be someone he wasn't. He moved deeper into the party. The noise grew louder, a mix of jazz music, clinking silverware, and the roar of 100 conversations. It was overwhelming. He felt like he was swimming upstream in a river of noise. Suddenly, the crowd parted a little and he saw him. Keanu Reeves was standing near a large, abstract sculpture that looked like twisted metal ribbon. He wasn't holding court. He wasn't surrounded by a swarm of people trying to get a picture or a handshake. He was just standing there, looking at the art. He was wearing a dark suit, but it looked soft, worn in a comfortable way. He looked calm. Alex watched him for a second. Keanu nodded at something an older woman was saying to him. He was listening, really listening. He wasn't looking over her shoulder to see if someone more important was walking by. He was just there in the moment. That made Alex even more nervous. He was used to people who were always looking for the next best thing. People like his father. Keanu seemed different, genuine, and that was terrifying. If Alex tried to use some fake business line on him, Keanu would know. He would see right through it. Alex tightened his grip on his champagne flute. The glass was cold and slippery. He could feel the condensation on his fingers. Just go over there, Alex told himself. Walk over. Say, Mr. Reeves, nice to meet you. I'm Alex from Apex Tech Simple. He took a step forward. Then another. The distance between them closed slowly. 10 feet. 5 feet. Alex's mouth went dry. He practiced his greeting in his head. Asterisk, hello, sir. Big fan. Love your work. We are really excited about the merger. Asterisk. He was so focused on what he was going to say that he stopped paying attention to where he was walking. He was looking at Keanu's face, trying to memorize his features, trying to guess what kind of person he was. He didn't see the waiter stepping out from behind a tall flower arrangement. He didn't see the tray of drinks balanced precariously in the server's hand. All he could think about was the number, $750 million. His father's voice, the heavy, wooden feeling in his chest. The pressure to be the man everyone expected him to be. He was 3 steps away. He opened his mouth to speak. He lifted his hand to gesture, maybe to shake hands or just to wave. The movement was too sharp, too jerky. His elbow flew out. The waiter moved to the left. Alex moved to the right. It was a perfect accident in the making. The golden liquid in Alex's glass tilted, defying gravity for a split second before it leaped out of the cup. Time seemed to stretch. The music faded away. The laughter in the room sounded like it was coming from underwater. Alex watched the champagne fly through the air. It sparkled under the bright lights. It was a beautiful, tragic arc of liquid heading directly toward the one person in the room Alex absolutely could not afford to offend. His heart stopped. His stomach dropped. There was no stopping it now. The deal, the night, his father's approval. It was all hanging in the air alongside that splash of champagne. Alex wanted to close his eyes, to wake up in his bed, but he couldn't look away. He was frozen, watching the disaster unfold in slow motion, realizing that his clumsy mistake was about to change everything. The golden liquid didn't just splash. It exploded. It hit Keanu Reeves' chest with sound that seemed way too loud, like a heavy book dropped on a quiet floor. Splat. Time stopped. The music, the chatter, the clinking of silverware, it all vanished into a strange, ringing silence. All Alex could hear was the thumping of his own heart, beating so hard it hurt his ribs. He watched the champagne seep into the dark fabric of Keanu's jacket, spreading like a dark stain on a map. The bubbles fizzed and popped for a second, defying gravity. Before soaking in deep, Alex stood there, his hands still frozen in the air, his empty glass tilted dangerously. He felt like a statue, except statues didn't sweat, and Alex was sweating buckets. A cold chill washed over him, starting at his neck and running down his spine. Despite the warmth of the crowded room, the waiter gasped, a sharp, high-pitched sound that broke the trance. "Oh no, I am so sorry," the waiter cried, dropping his tray. Fortunately, it was empty, but the metal hitting the glass floor made a terrible clatter. "I didn't see you." The waiter looked terrified, his eyes wide, staring at the wet mess on the movie star suit. "It wasn't him," Alex heard himself say, but his voice sounded thin and shaky, like a child trying not to cry. "It was me. I did it." He looked at Keanu's face. This was it. This was the moment his life ended, or at least the life his father wanted for him. He had just ruined the suit of the most important man in the room, the man who held the key to the $750 million deal, the man who could make or break his family's company with a single word. Alex's brain started running a mile a minute. Asterisk, he's going to yell. He's going to scream. He's going to call security and throw me out. Dad is going to kill me. We're going to lose the house, the cars, everything. All because I couldn't walk in a straight line. Asterisk. He felt the eyes of the room on him. People were turning their heads. Whispers started up like bees buzzing. Did you see that? That's the CEO's kid. He just dumped champagne on Keanu. The judgment fell heavy, like a physical weight pushing down on his shoulders. I am so sorry, Alex stammered, his voice cracking. He took a step forward, his hands flailing uselessly in the air. He didn't know what to do with them. He wanted to run, but his feet were glued to the fancy glass floor. Oh, God, Mr. Reeves, I didn't mean my hand slipped. He looked around frantically for a napkin, something to wipe the mess away. He saw a table with white linen cloths nearby and lunged for it. He grabbed a napkin and practically shoved it toward Keanu's chest. Here, take this. Alex yelled, a bit too loudly. I'm so stupid. I'm so sorry. He was panting now, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. He felt like he was going to throw up. He expected Keanu to push him away. He expected a security guard to tackle him. In his world, in the high-stakes business world his father lived in, mistakes like this weren't accidents. They were unforgivable sins. You didn't spill drinks on powerful people. You didn't show weakness. You didn't mess up. Alex looked down at his own hands. They were trembling so violently he almost dropped the napkin. He felt small. He felt like a fraud who had been exposed. The expensive suit, the shiny shoes, the gelled hair, it was all a costume. Underneath, he was just a scared kid who had made a terrible public mistake. Please, Alex whispered, his eyes stinging with tears he was fighting to hold back. I can pay for the cleaning. I'll buy you a new suit. Anything. He braced himself for the anger. He waited for the shouting. He closed his eyes, waiting for the blow to land, whether it was verbal or physical. But it didn't come. Instead, he felt a gentle hand on his shoulder. It wasn't a grip of iron like his father used. It was soft, steady. Alex opened his eyes. Keanu Reeves hadn't moved away. He hadn't shouted. He was looking down at the wet patch on his shirt, brushing at it lightly with his own hand. Then he looked up at Alex. There was no fire in his eyes. There was no anger. There was just a calm, quiet look that made Alex's breath hitch. It's okay, Keanu said. His voice was low and smooth, like a quiet stream running over rocks. It cut through the panic in Alex's head instantly. Alex blinked, confused. What? But your suit, it's ruined. It's just champagne, Keanu said, interrupting him gently. He smiled a little, just a small curve of his lips. It dries. It's just clothes, Alex. It's not a big deal. Alex stood there, mouth slightly open. He couldn't process it. In his world, everything was a big deal. Every coffee stain, every missed call, every slightly off number. It was all a catastrophe. But here was this man, this superstar, standing in a soaked suit worth thousands of dollars, telling him it was okay. Keanu reached out and took the crumpled napkin from Alex's shaking hand. He folded it neatly and dabbed at the spot on his own chest, not seeming to care that people were staring. Are you all right? Keanu asked, looking Alex right in the eyes. The question threw Alex off balance. Me? I spilled the drink on you. I know, Keanu said. He tilted his head slightly. But you took a nasty spill there. You were moving fast. You didn't hurt yourself when you twisted, did you? Or step on any glass? Alex looked down at his shoes. The leather was still shiny. No glass. He looked back at Keanu. The man was actually worried about him. The person who had just been assaulted by expensive sparkling water was worried about the attacker's well-being. I'm fine, Alex whispered. The panic in his chest began to loosen, just a fraction. The crushing weight of the $750 million didn't feel quite so heavy, though it was still there in the back of his mind. Good. Keanu nodded. He tossed the damp napkin onto a passing tray. That's the important thing. Accidents happen to everyone. Don't beat yourself up about it. The waiter was still standing nearby, looking like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. Keanu turned to him and gave him a reassuring nod. It's all right, man. No harm done. The waiter let out a breath. He seemed to have been holding for a minute. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Alex felt a wave of shame wash over him. But it was different this time. It wasn't the shame of failure. It was the shame of realizing how different he was from this man. If the roles had been reversed, if a waiter had spilled champagne on him, Alex knew he would have been annoyed. He might have made a scene. He certainly wouldn't have asked if the waiter was okay. He looked at Keanu, who was now trying to squeeze some of the liquid out of his sleeve. He didn't look arrogant. He didn't look like a movie star. He looked like a regular guy in an unfortunate situation. There was no ego, no entitlement. I really am sorry, Alex said again, but this time his voice was steadier. I was coming over to talk to you about the deal. My dad, Robert, he said I had to make a good impression. I guess I failed. Keanu laughed. It was a genuine sound, warm and friendly. Well, you definitely made an impression. I don't think I'll forget this anytime soon. He looked at Alex, his eyes twinkling just a bit. We can still talk. Like I said, it's just a suit. Don't let a little bubbly ruin the night. You're here to celebrate, right? Alex felt his shoulders drop. He exhaled a long breath. He didn't know he was holding. The terror was gone, replaced by a strange sense of wonder. He had braced for a storm, but instead, he had found shelter. He looked at the wet stain on Keanu's chest, then up at the actor's kind face. For the first time all night, Alex forgot about the money. He forgot about the pressure. He was just standing there, talking to a human being who was being incredibly decent to him. Okay, Alex said, a small, tentative smile forming on his own face. We can talk, but I still feel terrible about your jacket. It gives a character, Keanu said, waving a hand dismissively. Now, do you want another drink? Or maybe we should stick to water for a while, just to be safe. Alex let out a short laugh. Water sounds good. Water sounds very good. The noise of the party rushed back in, the music, the talking, the laughter, but it didn't feel overwhelming anymore. The spotlight didn't feel so hot. Alex took a deep breath, feeling his fingers stop shaking. He was still the rich kid who spilled the champagne, but somehow, for the first time in a long time, he felt like maybe that was okay. Let's get some air, Keanu said, gesturing toward the far end of the room. It's getting a little loud in here. Alex nodded, still feeling a bit dazed. He followed Keanu away from the center of the party, leaving the staring eyes and the hushed whispers behind them. They walked toward a wall of glass panels that slid open to a wide terrace. The air outside was cool and crisp, a welcome relief from the heat of the crowded penthouse. It wasn't raining, and the sky was clear, filled with a faint glow of stars hidden behind the bright city lights. Keanu leaned against the stone railing and looked out at the view. Alex stood a few feet away, unsure if he should stand next to him or give him space. He felt like he was in a dream. 10 minutes ago, he was ruining his life. Now, he was standing on a balcony with the man who held his future in his hands, and they were breathing. So, Keanu said, turning around to face him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, silver flask. Water. It's safer than champagne. He took a sip and offered to Alex. Alex took it. Thanks. He took a small sip. The water was cool and soothing. He handed it back. I really can't believe you aren't yelling at me. My dad would have lost his mind. Actually, he would have fired me on the spot if I worked for him. Keanu chuckled softly. He put the flask back in his pocket. Parents have high expectations. I get it, but getting angry over a spill doesn't clean the shirt. It just ruins the night for two people instead of one. Alex looked down at his own shoes. Yeah, well, expectations are heavy, especially tonight. Tell me about it, Keanu said. His voice was gentle, inviting, not like an interrogator, but like someone actually curious. You seemed pretty intense back there, like you were on a mission. I was, Alex admitted. He felt a sudden urge to talk, to spill his guts just like he had spilled the drink. Maybe it was the adrenaline fading, or maybe it was just the way Keanu was looking at him without judgment. My father, Robert, He built Apex Tech from nothing. He's tough. He doesn't accept failure. This merger, the $750 million deal, it's all he talks about. He told me I had to come here and seal the deal with you. He said the future of the family depended on it. Alex sighed, leaning his arms on a railing next to Keanu. The truth is, I don't know if I'm the right guy for that. I don't know if I want to be the guy who sits in boardrooms and talks about numbers all day. I like design. I like building things. But I don't like the game. The smiling and the handshakes when you really just want to go home and read a book. Keanu nodded slowly. That sounds exhausting. Pretending to be someone you aren't. It is, Alex said, surprised by how easy it was to say. I feel like a fake most of the time. I wear the suit, I say the words, but I feel like a kid playing dress-up. I just want him to be proud of me. But I feel like no matter what I do, it's never enough. He waited for Keanu to give him advice. He waited for the usual speech about grinding or hustling that he heard from all his father's friends. But Keanu didn't say any of that. You know, Keanu said quietly, looking out at the traffic moving far below, pride is a tricky thing. You can't chase it. You just have to do the work that matters to you. If you do good work and you treat people well, the rest sorts itself out. And if your father can't see that you're trying, that's his blindness, not yours. Alex felt a lump form in his throat. No one had ever talked to him like that before. Everyone in his world talked about winning, about conquering, about being the best. No one talked about just doing good work and being happy. Thanks, Alex said, his voice barely a whisper. That actually helps. I'm glad, Keanu smiled. It was a real smile, crinkling the corners of his eyes. You seem like a smart kid, Alex. Don't let the pressure turn you into stone. You have to stay soft. You have to stay human. That's the most important part. For a few minutes, they just stood there in silence. It was a comfortable silence, the kind Alex rarely experienced. He felt the knot in his chest loosen. He thought that maybe, just maybe, he had actually made a friend tonight. He thought that maybe the deal was going to be okay, because Keanu seemed to like him, the real him, not the business robot version. Then, the quiet moment was broken. A young woman, maybe barely 20 years old, stepped out onto the terrace. She was wearing a headset and holding a clipboard. She looked nervous. She was part of the event staff, clearly overworked and under pressure. "Excuse me, Mr. Reeves," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm so sorry to interrupt. We're setting up for the speech in the main room, and the lighting guys need you to move about 3 feet to the left. The reflection from the glass is messing with the spotlight." Alex felt a spark of annoyance flare up in his chest. He was having a moment, a breakthrough, and here was this random girl interrupting them to talk about spotlights. He looked at Keanu, expecting him to be annoyed too. They were having a deep conversation about life and pressure, and now they had to move because of a light? But Keanu didn't get annoyed. He just looked at the girl and nodded. "Oh, sure, no problem. Sorry about that." He started to shift his position. Alex didn't know why he did it. Maybe it was the stress of the night coming back. Maybe it was years of watching his father treat the help like furniture. Maybe he just felt entitled to the space, and this time with the star. But he suddenly felt the need to assert himself. He felt the need to protect the vibe they had, even if it meant being mean. "Wait," Alex snapped. He stepped forward, blocking the girl's path. "Can't you see we're talking here?" The girl froze, her eyes going wide. I know, sir. Seriously?" Alex cut her off. His voice was sharp, louder than he intended. "He's taking time out of his night to talk to me. And you're bothering us about a light? Can't you people do your jobs without bothering the guests?" "Figure it out." The girl's face turned bright red. She looked down at her clipboard, her hands shaking. "I'm so sorry. I was just told to ask. I'll tell him to fix it another way." She turned around quickly and practically ran back inside, her head down. Alex turned back to Keanu, expecting a look of solidarity. He expected a "wow, she was rude," or a "thanks for handling that." He felt a surge of pride, like he had defended their territory. But when he looked at Keanu, the air between them had changed completely. The warmth was gone. The easy smile had vanished. Keanu was looking at Alex not with anger, but with a quiet, piercing disappointment. It was a look that cut deeper than any shout could. It was the look you give someone when you realize you were wrong about them. Alex's stomach dropped. "What?" he asked, his voice suddenly small again. She was interrupting. It was rude. Keanu didn't say anything for a long moment. He looked past Alex, at the glass panels where the girl had disappeared. Then he looked back at Alex, his eyes dark and serious. "She was doing her job, Alex," Keanu said softly. "She was polite. She was nervous. And she asked nicely." Alex felt his face get hot. "But we were in the middle of a conversation." "It doesn't matter," Keanu said. He stood up straight, fixing his jacket. The wet spot was still there, drying to a light stain, but it didn't seem to bother him anymore. What bothered him was something else entirely. You can be the smartest guy in the room. You can have the best ideas. But if you can't be kind to the person bringing you water or asking you to move a foot to the left, none of the rest matters. I didn't mean to," Alex stammered. "Yes, you did," Keanu said. "It wasn't an accusation. It was just a fact. You did it because you thought you were more important than she was. You thought your moment was worth more than her feelings." Keanu took a step back, putting physical distance between them. "I think I'm going to go check on my jacket. And maybe find that girl and apologize to her for how she was just treated." "Mr. Reeves, please," Alex said, panic rising in his throat. He could see the deal slipping away. But more than that, he could see the respect slipping away. "I'm sorry. I'm just stressed. My dad—" "This isn't about your dad," Keanu said. He looked at Alex one last time. "It's about you. You have a good heart, Alex. I saw it earlier, but you have to protect it. Don't let the world turn you hard." Keanu turned and walked toward the glass panels. He slid one open and stepped back inside, leaving Alex alone on the terrace. Alex stood there in the cool night air. The city lights blurred in front of his eyes. He felt sick. He had fixed the champagne disaster, only to create a much bigger one. He had won the battle, but he had just lost the war, and he didn't even know how to fix it. He kicked the stone railing hard, hurting his foot, but he didn't care. The pain in his foot was nothing compared to the sinking feeling in his chest. Alex stood alone on the terrace for a long time after Keanu walked away. The cool air didn't feel refreshing anymore. It just felt cold. He looked at the spot where the actor had been standing, but there was nothing there now, just the stone railing and the city lights flickering in the distance. The noise of the party was a dull hum behind him, like a radio playing in another room. He replayed the last few minutes in his head, over and over again. He saw the young girl's face, the way she had flinched when he snapped at her. He heard his own voice, sharp and arrogant, echoing in his ears. Asterisk, "Can't you see we're talking here?" Asterisk, why had he said that? It wasn't like him. Or maybe it was exactly like him when he was stressed. Maybe this was who he really was when the pressure was on. He thought about the champagne spilling. That was an accident. But yelling at the girl? That was a choice. And Keanu had seen it. Keanu, the man he was supposed to impress, had seen the ugly side of him. Alex felt a heavy rock settle in his stomach. He stayed out there until his fingers were numb, hoping the air would clear his head, but it didn't. He finally went back inside, but he couldn't face the crowd. He slipped out the side exit, ignoring the valet, and walked down the street until he found a cab. He just wanted to go home and hide. The next morning arrived with a harsh, bright sunlight that seemed to mock his mood. Alex woke up with a headache, even though he hadn't drunk much the night before. It was a stress headache, a tight band squeezing his skull. He lay in bed for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, wishing he could just stay under the covers forever. But he knew he couldn't. Today was the day the deal was supposed to be finalized. He had to go to the office. He got up and showered, trying to wash away the memory of the previous night. He put on a fresh suit, dark blue this time. He looked in the mirror. He looked the part of the successful businessman, but he felt hollow on the inside. He felt like a fraud, just as he had told Keanu. The drive to the Apex Tech Tower was quiet. The city was moving fast, people rushing to work, cars honking, but Alex felt separated from all of it. He was in a bubble of dread. When the cab pulled up to the glass skyscraper, he took a deep breath before getting out. The lobby was shiny and empty, smelling of coffee and floor wax. The security guard nodded at him, but Alex could barely manage a smile. He stepped into the elevator and pressed a button for the top floor. As the numbers climbed, his heart beat faster. He tried to tell himself everything would be fine. Keanu had been nice. He had forgiven the spill. Surely, a small moment of rudeness to a staff member wouldn't kill a $750 million deal. Business was business, right? Numbers didn't care about feelings. The elevator dinged, and the doors slid open. Alex walked down the long hallway toward the executive suite. The office was quiet. Too quiet. Usually by this time, the phones would be ringing and assistants would be running around. Today, there was a strange stillness in the air. It felt like the calm before a storm, or maybe the silence after a ship had already sunk. He reached the end of the hall and stopped in front of the main conference room. It was a vast space with a long table made of polished black stone. The walls were entirely glass, offering a panoramic view of the city. Through the glass, he could see his father, Robert, standing by the window, looking out. He wasn't moving. Alex pushed open the glass door. It wasn't heavy. It moved silently on its track and stepped inside. "Dad," Alex said. His voice sounded small in the big room. Robert turned around slowly. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. His shoulders were slumped, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He looked older than he had the day before. In his hand, he was holding a single sheet of paper. He didn't speak. He just looked at Alex with an expression that made Alex's blood run cold. "Is the contract ready?" Alex asked, trying to sound hopeful. "Did Keanu sign it?" Robert let out a long, shaky breath. He walked over to the table and placed the piece of paper down. He didn't slam it. He just let it drop onto the smooth surface. "There is no contract, Alex," Robert said. His voice was quiet, devoid of the booming energy Alex was used to. "The deal is off." "What?" Alex felt his knees go weak. He walked over to the table. "What do you mean, off?" He said it was okay. We talked on the terrace. I apologized for the champagne. He was cool with it. He said accidents happen. Robert looked up at his son, his eyes sad. "It wasn't the champagne, Alex. I spoke to the studio head 20 minutes ago. Keanu called him late last night. He pulled out." "But why?" Alex asked, his voice rising in panic. "We were getting along. We were having a real conversation." He understood the pressure. "He understood the pressure," Robert agreed, nodding slowly. "But he didn't like what he saw when that pressure was tested." Alex froze. He knew exactly what this was about. Robert picked up the paper and read from it, his voice flat. "Keanu told them that while he enjoyed meeting you, and while he appreciated the apology for the drink, he couldn't be part of a partnership with someone who treats people the way you treated that girl on the terrace." Alex opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He said, and I quote, Robert continued, looking down at the paper, "I can teach a partner about profit margins. I can help them understand the business. But I can't teach them how to have a heart. If he treats the staff like that, he'll eventually treat the partners like that. I don't do business with people who have no respect for the humans standing next to them." Robert let the paper fall back onto the table. He looked at Alex, not with anger, but with a deep disappointment that hurt much more than yelling ever could. $750 million. Alex. Gone. Because you couldn't be polite to a young woman who was just doing her job. Alex stared at his father. He wanted to argue. He wanted to say it wasn't fair, that it was just one mistake, that the girl shouldn't have interrupted. But the words died in his throat. Because he knew Keanu was right. He thought about the fear on the girl's face. He thought about the arrogance in his own voice. He had thought he was important. He had thought he was the main character in the movie. But Keanu, a real movie star, had shown him that true importance wasn't about shouting the loudest. It was about kindness. I didn't mean to," Alex whispered. He sank into one of the leather chairs around the table, putting his head in his hands. "I just wanted to impress him. I wanted us to have our moment." "And you destroyed the moment yourself," Robert said. He walked around the table and put a hand on Alex's shoulder. The grip wasn't tight. It was heavy. "I taught you to be tough, Alex. I taught you to fight for what you want. Maybe I taught you too well. I forgot to teach you that being a leader isn't just about power. It's about service. It's about respect. Alex looked up. His father looked defeated. The company was going to take a hit. The stock would drop. People might lose jobs. All because of him. I'm sorry, Dad, Alex said, tears stinging his eyes. I really messed up. I know you're sorry, Robert said, sighing. But sorry doesn't bring back $750 million. He looked out the window again. We'll survive. We always do. But you need to think about who you want to be, Alex. Because the suit and the title don't make you a man. Your actions do. Robert walked out of the room, leaving Alex alone with the view of the city. Alex sat there for a long time. He looked out at the skyscrapers, at the millions of people living their lives. He realized that Keanu hadn't just cost him a deal. He had given him a gift. He had shown him the truth about himself. It was a painful truth, a truth that cost a fortune, but it was real. Alex stood up and walked to the glass wall. He looked down at the street below, watching the tiny cars and people. He touched the cold glass. He had lost the money. He had disappointed his father. But for the first time, he didn't want to blame anyone else. He didn't want to make excuses. He just wanted to be better. He turned and walked out of the conference room, leaving the unsigned contract lying on the table. He didn't know how to fix this yet, but he knew he had to start by treating the next person he saw, not as a servant or an obstacle, but as a human being. That was the only deal that mattered now. The glass elevator slid down the ground floor, but Alex didn't get out when it reached the lobby. He pressed a button for the parking level, then changed his mind and walked out onto the street. He needed to move. He needed to feel the ground under his feet. He walked away from the high-rise district, leaving the tall buildings behind. The sun was high in the sky now, bright and warm. It felt different than the cold fluorescent lights of the office. He loosened his tie, something his father would have yelled at him for doing in public, and unbuttoned the top button of his shirt. He took a deep breath of the city air. Exhaust fumes mixed with the smell of hot pretzels from a cart on the corner. It wasn't the sweet scent of strawberries and expensive perfume from the night before. It was real. It was messy. And he liked it. He walked for maybe an hour. His expensive shoes, the ones that pinched his toes, were starting to hurt, but he didn't care. He thought about the $750 million. It was a staggering amount of money. It was enough to buy islands, to build skyscrapers, to never have to worry about anything ever again. And it was gone. Just like that. He waited for the panic to come back. He waited for the crushing weight to press down on his chest again. But it didn't. Instead, he felt a strange lightness. He felt like he had dropped a heavy suitcase he had been carrying for miles. He realized that for the last 24 hours, he had been terrified of losing the money. But now that it was actually lost, he was still here. The sky hadn't fallen. The city was still running. He was still Alex. He didn't explode. He found himself standing in front of the hotel where the party had been the night before. The banners were gone. The red carpet outside was rolled up. It looked just like a normal building again. People were walking in and out, tourists with cameras and suitcases, not billionaires in tuxedos. Alex stood on the sidewalk for a long time. He knew he couldn't go up and fix the deal. Keanu had made his decision. Keanu wasn't a man who changed his mind lightly, especially not about something as important as character. But there was something else he could do. He remembered the girl, the event staff member with the clipboard. He didn't know her name. He didn't know if she was working today. But he knew he couldn't just walk away and forget about how he had made her feel. That was the old Alex. The Alex who cared more about the important people than the regular ones. He straightened his tie, then thought better of it and left it loose. He walked into the lobby. It was cool and quiet inside. There was no music, no champagne. The floor was being polished by a man with a large buffer machine. Alex walked over to the front desk. A woman with glasses was typing on a computer. "Excuse me," Alex said. He kept his voice low and gentle. The woman looked up. "Yes? Can I help you check in?" "No, I'm not a guest," Alex said. "I was here last night for the Apex Tech party. I was hoping to speak to one of the event staff. A young woman, maybe 20 years old, with a headset and a clipboard. She was helping with the lighting." The woman looked at him, suspicious. Are you management? Because if you're here to complain about the service last night, you need to call the corporate office. Alex shook his head quickly. No, not at all. I'm not here to complain. I need to apologize to her. I was rude to her last night. Unbelievably rude. And I want to fix it if I can. The woman's expression softened. She looked him up and down, seeing the expensive suit, but also the tired, honest look in his eyes. I think her name is Chloe. She might be in the back office, setting up for the wedding this weekend. Could I leave a note for her? Or wait? Just a moment, the woman said. She picked up a phone and dialed an extension. She spoke quietly for a minute, then hung up. She's on her break. She's an employee lounge down that hall. She pointed to a corridor near the elevators. Door with the keypad. I'll buzz you in. Thank you, Alex said. Thank you so much. He walked down the hall. The woman at the desk pressed a button, and the metal lock clicked. Alex pushed the door open. Inside, the room was simple. There was a fridge, a microwave, and a few tables. Sitting at one of the tables, drinking a soda and looking at her phone, was the girl from the terrace. She looked up when the door opened. Her eyes went wide when she saw him. She immediately stiffened, clutching her phone. Her guard went up instantly. She remembered him. She remembered the shouting. Alex stopped in the doorway. He didn't want to crowd her. He stayed back. Hi, he said softly. I'm on break, she stammered, standing up. If I did something wrong, the manager is... You didn't do anything wrong, Alex cut in, but gently this time. No snapping. No sharp tone. You did everything right. I was the one who was wrong. She blinked, confused. What? Last night, Alex said, taking a small step forward but keeping his distance. On the terrace. You were just doing your job. You asked me to move, and I snapped at you. I yelled at you. I was rude and I was arrogant, and I am so sorry. The girl stared at him. She wasn't used to this. People like him didn't apologize to people like her. Not really. They complained to managers. They demanded free things. They didn't come into the break room to say sorry. It was okay, she said, though her voice was shaky. I know you were stressed. It was a big night. It wasn't okay, Alex said. Stress is an excuse for being mean. Not ever. I felt terrible about it all night. I actually lost the deal because of it. Her eyes got big. The deal? Yeah. Mr. Reeves saw it happen. He wasn't happy with how I treated you. He pulled out. Alex laughed, a short, sad sound. And you know what? He was right. He was absolutely right. The girl sat back down slowly, processing this. He left because of me? Because of how I treated you, Alex corrected. And he taught me a lesson, a really expensive one. But I think I needed to learn it. He looked at her, really looked at her, not as a server or an obstacle, but as a person. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I don't want you to think that all important people are jerks. And I don't want you to think that I'm a jerk either, at least not permanently. I'm trying to do better. The girl smiled. It was a small, cautious smile, but it was real. Thanks. I appreciate you coming down here. Most people wouldn't bother. I know, Alex said. I wouldn't have bothered yesterday, but today feels different. He stood there for a moment, feeling awkward but good. He didn't need to explain anything else. He didn't need to defend himself. He had just needed to clear the air. Have a good break, Chloe, he said. You too, Alex, she replied. He walked back out of the lounge, back down the hall, and through the lobby. He didn't look back. He pushed the front glass doors open and stepped out into the sunlight. The city was loud. Cars were honking. People were rushing to lunch. The world was chaotic and busy. But Alex stood still for a moment on the sidewalk. He patted his chest, right over his heart. It was beating steady and strong. He had lost $750 million. He had disappointed his father. He had made a fool of himself in front of his hero. It was a disaster by every business standard in the world. But as he started walking toward the subway station, he didn't want a limo today. He wanted to be with people. He realized something. He felt lighter than he had in years. He wasn't wearing a mask anymore. He wasn't pretending. He looked up at the sky and saw a plane flying overhead. leaving a white streak across the blue. He wondered where Keanu was. He hoped he was somewhere peaceful, wearing a dry shirt. "Thanks, Keanu," Alex whispered to the air. He didn't get the money, but he got something that couldn't be bought or sold in a boardroom. He got his humanity back. And as he stepped down into the subway, blending into the crowd, he realized that was a deal worth making. He smiled at a stranger carrying a heavy bag, and for the first time, the smile reached his eyes.